from my perspective, the more I learn, the more I realize Hippocrates was right. And loosely quoting Hippocrates, he said, all disease begins in the gut, or something along those lines, or death begins in the colon. Doesn't really matter what the exact quote is, but the more I learn, the more I feel like he's right. So recently, because I just started writing my next book a few weeks ago, so there'll be one short chapter on kind of basic things everyone can do for their gut to keep their gut healthy. And I was just kind of looking into endotoxin more and more. Right now, just for the listeners, endotoxin is a slightly more colloquial term for what is known as lipopolysaccharide, or LPS. And this is basically a fragment of the outer cell wall of certain type of bacteria, the so-called gram-negative bacteria. And we all have gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria in our guts. They are part of the commensal, the so-called commensal populations. So these bacteria that produce this endotoxin are always in the gut, and some of them are detected. We can detect them on, for example, the GI map, and they are some of them are under a category. The lab, Diagnostic Solutions Lab, they call them potential autoimmune triggers, or there's certain potentially dysbiotic bacteria. So that's to say, in normal amounts or in low populations, these bacteria don't pose a problem for the organism, but if allowed to overgrow under certain conditions, they can cause problems. And part of that, the problem they cause is when their populations increase, the turnover increases. When they die, they shed some of this LPS, the lipopolysaccharide or endotoxin, and that can get into the bloodstream. It can activate certain receptors in the body that initiate inflammation. So I think anybody, or rather everybody, has in their own gut the seeds to disease, because we all have this endotoxin producing bacteria. So it at that point, another quote from Hippocrates is, let food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food. I think that's another pretty profound thing. That's why it stood the test of time for a couple of thousand years, is because if we have the potential, if we all have these endotoxin producing bacteria in the gut, in our guts, we have the potential to create, for them to create disease if we don't, if we do the wrong things, let's say, with our diet and lifestyle. But that also goes to say, if we are in a tough spot, if we have some dysbiosis or whatever, we can use foods to heal our body, right? So, for example, a lot of herbs, plant foods, they actually have antibacterial properties, anti-yeast, anti-parasitic. So, and we over the ages, we've discovered a lot of them. Like wormwood. Maybe that's why it's called wormwood. Artemisia is good for parasites, worms, and cloves are good for, I think, for the eggs, and black walnut leaf, I believe. Those are all antiparasitics. And then we have grapefruit seed extract that's really good for yeasts. Oregano. So oregano oil is really good for bacteria. It's an overall really good antibacterial, antipathogenic. But so we can use these in concentrated amounts. We can use them in non-concentrated amounts to cleanse ourselves, right? So using literally what is out in nature, the food, we can heal our body. That's all we need. We just have to remove whatever obstacles are in place, and then replace whatever's been missing from the diet, which for people nowadays, it could be nutrient deficiencies. Also, there's a lot of toxicity, right? So these are kind of the basic things we need to do. So I guess to answer your question, my view is that the gut, there's a reason why it's really permeating the zeitgeist nowadays. But I guess, like anything that comes into the mainstream, it seems like the message has become somewhat diluted or warped or twisted, because a lot of people now think, oh, I have I have this population of bacteria. There's like 10, or that outnumber my cells 10 to 30 times, so I have to feed them. So we are kind of told you need to eat a lot of fiber to feed these bacteria. But if you again, going back to what we're talking about earlier, if you have these endotoxin producing bacteria in the gut, do you really want to just start throwing fuel on the fire that can create these endotoxins that can, especially if your gut is leaky, they can get a lot more can get into the bloodstream and start causing inflammation. So that's kind of where I see us right now. People think that they're all benign, and then occasionally maybe a pathogen can come in, and then we just use antibiotics to get rid of that. I think that's a little bit of a two-dimensional view.